Tonight, we witnessed something that reminded every single person watching exactly why motorsport is the most unpredictable, heart-stopping sport on the planet. One moment, the race was decided. The next moment, everything collapsed into pure chaos. Tires were screaming, metal was grinding, and hundreds of thousands of fans were on their feet, unable to breathe. Bristol Motor Speedway did it again. It took a perfectly normal race night and turned it into an absolute war zone that nobody saw coming. And when the final checkered flag finally fell, a name stood in victory lane that sent shockwave through the entire NASCAR world. Welcome to our special coverage of one of the most intense and dramatic nights of the entire 2026 NASCAR Cup Series. Tonight we are breaking down the Food City 500 at Bristol Motor Speedway, a race that delivered everything this legendary track is known for, and then somehow found a way to deliver even more. From the very first lap to the final overtime sprint, this race had strategy, aggression, heartbreak, chaos, and ultimately a victory that will be talked about for a very long time. Bristol once again proved to the entire world why it carries the title of the last great Coliseum. And if you were not watching tonight, then you genuinely missed one of the finest races in entire season. Before we get into the race itself, it is important that we take a moment to understand exactly what Bristol Motor Speedway means in the world of NASCAR, because this is not your standard oval track, and it never has been. Bristol is a half-mile concrete short track, and that description alone does not do justice to how brutally demanding this place actually is. The corners are extremely tight, the banking is steep, and the racing happens in such close and confined quarters that there is absolutely zero margin for error at any point during any. Cars race in tight and aggressive packs where contact is not just possible. It is practically guaranteed on any given restart. Tire wear becomes a critical and race-defining factor as the laps pile up, and any driver mistake, no matter how small, is punished immediately and severely. There is no easy lap at Bristol Motor Speedway. Every single corner is a fight for position. Every straight is a flat-out sprint, and every restart feels like an entirely new battle beginning from the very moment the green flag dropped on the Food City 500. The intensity inside that stadium was immediate and electric. Drivers wasted absolutely no time forming aggressive racing packs, and clean overtaking moves were already happening within the first handful of laps as teams began working out where their cars were strongest on the racetrack. Championship-level teams with serious resources were pushing hard to control track position early, understanding that at Bristol, where you're on the racetrack matters just as much as how fast your car actually. Pit strategy began playing a significant and decisive role even before the race reached its halfway point, and crew chiefs up and down pit lane were already having serious conversations about how to manage their approach. Teams were facing a genuinely difficult choice. Push the car hard in the early laps and risk burning through tire life before the end, or manage and conserve the rubber and then attack aggressively in the closing stages when it mattered. That strategic tension between aggression and patience was the invisible storyline running underneath every single lap of the race. As the race moved deeper into its middle stages, Bristol began showing its true character, and the race absolutely did not stay clean for very long. Multiple caution periods came out and completely reset the momentum of the entire field, erasing whatever advantage the leaders had built and compressing the entire running order back together into a tight and dangerous pack. Every single restart that followed became an extremely high-risk, high-reward situation where positions could be gained or lost in a matter of seconds. Drivers who came out of pit road on fresh tires had a massive and immediate advantage in grip and acceleration, while those who had stayed out on older rubber were struggling to maintain their pace and hold their positions under heavy pressure. The racing intensity continued to build with every passing lap. and the driving style inside the cockpit was shifting noticeably. Bump and run moves started appearing with increasing frequency as drivers began using their cars as tools to move competitors out of the way. Defensive blocking became more aggressive and more deliberate, and the communication between drivers and their crews over the radio was becoming tenser and more urgent with every restart. At this point in the race, it was abundantly clear to everyone watching that this event was not going to end quietly or without drama. As the Food City 500 entered its final stage, the front of the field compressed into one of the most fierce and breathtaking battles of the entire NASCAR season. Several drivers had emerged from the mid-race chaos as genuine and legitimate contenders for the victory, and every single one of them was driving at the absolute limit of what their car and their own ability could produce. Every lap was being driven like a qualifying lap, flat out and with total commitment. Every corner was a critical moment where position could be won or lost. Changes at the front of the field were happening within inches, with drivers trading the lead and trading paint in a battle that was genuinely impossible to predict from one lap. The crowd packed into Bristol Motor Speedway was completely and fully engaged, and the tension both inside the stadium and in living rooms across the country had reached an almost unbearable level. At this stage of the race, with a handful of laps remaining and multiple drivers still capable of winning, it genuinely looked like the victory could go to anyone you'd pack. But Bristol Motor Speedway had one more surprise left to deliver, and it was a significant one. With just a few laps remaining and the finish line in sight for the leaders, a late caution flag came out and completely changed the complexion and the outcome of this entire race. The field was reset. The gaps that drivers had worked so incredibly hard to build over hundreds of laps were wiped away in an instant, and suddenly the entire race was coming down to a final overtime restart situation. This is exactly the moment where Bristol Motor Speedway becomes truly legendary, because a restart at this track with everything on the line is not just a racing moment. It is a test of pure survival instinct, nerve, and decision-making under the most extreme possible pressure. Drivers lined up side by side on the restart. The tension inside that stadium was absolutely enormous. Engines were roaring at full power, and when the green flag finally dropped, what followed was absolute and total chaos. Cars were aggressive, lines were tight, contact was happening, and the race was pushed into full overtime with extra laps on the board and absolutely no second chances remaining for anyone in that. One final restart, one final sprint, and one final chance for someone to emerge from the madness and claim the victory. In that final overtime sprint, when the pressure was at its absolute maximum and every single decision mattered more than it had at any other point in the race, one driver managed to stay clean, stay composed, stay consistent, and stay perfectly positioned throughout the chaos surrounding it. That driver was Ty Gibbs. In a stunning and commanding overtime finish, Ty Gibbs took complete control of the race at exactly the right moment, executing the final restart with precision and confidence that was genuinely impressive. While other contenders around him were getting caught up in the aggression and the incidents that the overtime chaos was producing, Gibbs kept his head, maintained his composure, found the opening he needed, and held his racing line under pressure that would have broken lesser drivers. Crossing the finish line at Bristol Motor Speedway, Ty Gibbs secured a major and significant victory at one of the toughest and most demanding tracks in all of NASCAR, a performance defined entirely by timing, patience, and an ability to deliver precision driving under the most extreme pressure imaginable. This victory at Bristol is a genuine statement moment in the career of Ty Gibbs, and the NASCAR world is taking notice. As the engines finally cooled down tonight at Bristol Motor Speedway, one thing is completely and undeniably clear. This was not just another race on the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series calendar. This was a battle of endurance, nerves, strategy, and timing that stretched across hundreds of laps and ended in overtime drama that nobody could have scripted. From the aggressive early race battles, through the mid-race chaos of cautions and restarts, through the breathtaking late race fight at the front of the field, and finally through the overtime finish that decided everything. Bristol Motor Speedway once again proved beyond any doubt why it is one of the most feared, most respected, and most beloved tracks in entire sport. And in the end, Gibbs stood above all of the chaos as the worthy and deserving winner of a race that will be remembered for its relentless intensity and its refusal to give anyone an easy moment from start to finish. But in NASCAR, as every fan already knows, the story never ends here, because the next race is always waiting, and so is the next surprise.